Few figures in wrestling spark as much debate as John Laurinaitis. He built a career around the famous people power slogan, but ironically, he seemed far removed from understanding the very people he worked with. From controversial decisions as a WWE executive to serious allegations that tarnished his reputation, Laurinaitis' journey is a case study in power, disconnection, and controversy. But what led so many to view him as one of the most hated personalities in wrestling? Johnny Ace, before becoming a renowned WWE executive, began his journey in wrestling as a performer. Initially, his in-ring career was lackluster, but he gained some recognition by forming the tag team Dynamic Dudes alongside Shane Douglas. The concept, created by WCW, aimed to appeal to younger audiences by capitalizing on the skateboarding craze. However, the attempt was disastrous. The duo carried skateboards but clearly didn't know how to use them and wore fluorescent outfits that made them targets of criticism and ridicule. Not even Jim Cornette, known for elevating tag teams, could salvage the pairing. He was reluctant to be associated with the failure of the Dynamic Dudes, who became a prime example of poor creative execution in wrestling. Jim Ross, reflecting on that time, highlighted Johnny Ace's lack of charisma, comparing him to plain oatmeal, something that simply existed without appeal. Despite his flawless smile and perfect teeth, Johnny failed to connect with the audience. His and Shane Douglas' stint as the Dynamic Dudes was more memorable for its embarrassment than any actual success. In 1990, Johnny pivoted his career by joining All Japan Pro Wrestling, a Japanese promotion known for its focus on intense matches and technical skill, in contrast to WCW's showmanship and cartoonish characters. There, he left behind the skateboards and flashy outfits, adopting a more physical and serious style. While he never became a major star, he was a reliable competitor, particularly in the tag team division. His career's highlight came in 1998 when he challenged Maharu Misawa for the prestigious Triple Crown Heavyweight Championship, marking the peak of his otherwise modest wrestling career. Johnny retired as an in-ring competitor in June 2000 and returned to the United States. During his time in Japan, he missed the WCW's rise to prominence during the 1990s, but returned in time to witness its downfall. In October 2000, he was appointed head booker of WCW, replacing Vince Russo. In this role, he aimed to reverse the company's creative chaos by prioritizing quality wrestling and attempting to restore prestige to its titles. Despite his efforts, WCW was in an irreversible decline and was purchased by Vince McMahon in March 2001. As part of the acquisition, Johnny Laurinaitis' contract was included, and he became a WWF employee. Initially, he worked behind the scenes as an agent, but in 2004, tired of staying in the background, he took on the role of head of talent relations. This position became a significant milestone in his career, as he was responsible for overseeing recruitment, managing the roster, and addressing the wrestlers' concerns while they were on the road. Before Johnny, the role had been held by the legendary Jim Ross, JR, who shaped the future of wrestling by signing stars like The Rock, Kurt Angle, John Cena, Randy Orton, and Brock Lesnar. JR was also an essential bridge between the wrestlers and WWE management, widely praised for excelling in this role. However, in 2004, Johnny stepped into the position, marking a new chapter in his wrestling journey. This transition brought a different tone to WWE's handling of talent and solidified Johnny Ace's presence as an influential backstage figure within the company. John Laurinaitis, according to reports, always had a close relationship with Vince McMahon, which led him to become one of the biggest sycophants to the WWE boss. His goal, however, was clear: to take over the position of head of talent relations, a role held by Jim Ross. JR shared that, at one point, John approached Vince directly and convinced him to give him the job. What bothered JR, however, was that Laurinaitis didn't even try to hide his intentions. Instead of explaining his qualifications or providing solid reasons for the move, he simply pressured Vince. JR, on the other hand, had always been deeply involved in WWE's talent development, responsible for signing many of the wrestlers who appeared on screen. He saw this department as something he had helped build and was not ready to relinquish his position. Over time, Vince ended up aligning with Laurinaitis and made the decision to remove JR from his position. JR also shared that his relationship with Laurinaitis was difficult, with the latter frequently treating him disrespectfully. For JR, the environment was unhealthy, as he felt Laurinaitis was always trying to put himself ahead of Vince, securing his position through constant meetings and messages. JR, in contrast, had a more independent relationship with Vince, making decisions without constantly going through him. This contrasted with Laurinaitis' approach, which seemed to always be about excessively trying to please Vince. While JR's situation was frustrating, it didn't compare to Jim Cornette's relationship with Laurinaitis. Cornette, responsible for creating at Ohio Valley Wrestling, OVW, WWE's developmental system, always treated his promotion with great care. He viewed OVW not just as an extension of WWE, but as an independent company that needed to succeed on its own. JR, as head of talent relations, had always been courteous with Cornette, giving him advance notice of wrestler calls to WWE so he could adjust scripts and storylines, thus avoiding disappointments for fans. Laurinaitis, however, did not offer the same consideration to Cornette, disregarding the delicacy of a mutually respectful relationship and further complicating the backstage dynamics at WWE. The problems between them began to escalate when WWE wrestlers were called up to the main roster without prior notice, which put Cornette in a difficult position, having to reorganize shows at the last minute. One example of this occurred when Cornette tried to book Randy Orton for a show, but was informed by Tommy Dreamer that Orton would not be present. Orton had purchased non-refundable vacation tickets for his family, and Laurinaitis failed to notify about the booking, trying to blame Dreamer for the no-show. Cornette, furious, described Laurinaitis as an idiot, a liar, adding that nobody liked him. The final blow came when Laurinaitis fired Jim Cornette from his position as head of WWE's developmental territory. Not only that, but John didn't settle for ruining Cornette's career. He also managed to damage the development system that Jim had built. Cornette explained that Laurinaitis had an aversion to Ohio's cold, especially in winter, and decided to move WWE's developmental program from OVW to Florida Championship Wrestling. This move led to the decline of the program, which had been responsible for training major stars such as John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, Brock Lesnar, among others. Jim Cornette was adamant in stating that Laurinaitis had essentially ruined WWE's developmental system, which he had helped build with so much effort. "I have nothing good to say about him, neither as a worker, nor as a businessman, nor as a human being, nor as a skateboarder," Cornette said, making it clear how much contempt he had for Laurinaitis and the negative impact his actions had on WWE's development. John's reputation backstage at WWE was highly negative, and it seemed to be shared by many who worked under his leadership on the main roster. Teddy Long, for example, described Laurinaitis as one of the worst people on the planet. Long said that although John was friendly in his presence, he was actively trying to get Long fired by going behind his back to speak with Vince McMahon. Tiffany, who was Teddy's assistant on WWE's ECW brand, revealed in an interview that one night before a show, Laurinaitis confided in her that he had hired her to take over the position of general manager of ECW, intending to replace Teddy Long. This revelation made it clear how far he was willing to manipulate situations to achieve his goals. The Dudley Boys also had a negative opinion of Laurinaitis, especially after an incident involving the 2005 One Night Stand. According to Bubba Ray, they were about to sign a new contract with WWE. Everything was practically settled, and it was just waiting for the signature, when suddenly, Laurinaitis canceled the deal at the last minute. Bubba Ray didn't go into details about why John stabbed him in the back, but he stated that it was a personal issue. The most frustrating part for them was that somehow Laurinaitis convinced Vince McMahon not to put the contract back on the table. As Bubba Ray said, he cut his balls off, but the message was clear. He had no respect. The truth is that there is no shortage of negative stories about John Laurinaitis and how he treated the talents under his supervision. Another example came from Paul London, who shared an incident that occurred during a house show in Australia when he accidentally broke Shane Helms' nose. Upon returning to the United States, Paul began receiving several angry voicemail messages from WWE management, instructing him to immediately call Laurinaitis. Nervous about the situation, Paul finally managed to speak with him, and Laurinaitis was overly friendly, saying he just wanted to catch up. Paul realized that this behavior was part of Laurinaitis' strategy to keep the talents tense, creating an environment where wrestlers were constantly anxious about their jobs, never knowing whether a casual conversation could have serious consequences. Over time, the talents began to realize that they didn't need to take Laurinaitis seriously. Rene Dupree, for example, recalled how Laurinaitis would frequently threaten the wrestlers, claiming to have the power to fire them, even though that wasn't true. Rene was once told he would be fired if he didn't complete his rehab, but when he quit, Laurinaitis didn't have the courage to act, as Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson actually liked Renee and wouldn't allow his firing. This showed that, in the end, John was just all talk. In another incident, Laurinaitis told Boogeyman he would be fired one morning, but later that same day, Boogeyman had a meeting with Vince McMahon where not only did he keep his job, but he also received a salary raise. John's relationship with his own family also demonstrated his lack of trust and integrity. Joe Laurinaitis, known to fans as Road Warrior Animal, returned to WWE in 2005 to form a new version of the Legion of Doom with Heidenreich. It was a good opportunity for Animal to make some good money before retiring. He had helped create successful merchandise products, but was only receiving a small 0.5% cut. When he asked his brother John to renegotiate this percentage, John immediately dismissed the idea, claiming that all talents received the same percentage. However, Animal found out that this wasn't true, as other wrestlers had much better merchandise percentages and had negotiated on their own. This blatant lie from John led to a huge rift between the brothers, further highlighting the lack of trust between them. Bob Orton had a shocking health story revealed on his Wikipedia page, that when he was still a teenager, Orton was diagnosed with hepatitis C, but showed no visible symptoms and eventually forgot about the disease over the course of more than 30 years. However, during his rivalry with The Undertaker, alongside his son Randy Orton, he was retested, and it was discovered that he still carried the disease. The Undertaker was extremely upset for not being informed about Orton's condition, especially upon learning that John Laurinaitis, the former WWE talent relations head, was aware of the disease and allowed Orton to participate in matches involving blading. At one point in the rivalry, during a Hell in a Cell match at Armageddon 2005, Orton bled directly onto The Undertaker, which could have put the dead man at risk of contracting hepatitis C. This situation raises a question. Was Laurinaitis simply incompetent, or did he not care about the health of the wrestlers? Moreover, Laurinaitis' approach to recruiting new talent was equally questionable. He posted an ad seeking men over 6 feet tall and 250 pounds with no prior wrestling experience, which led to the hiring of several types with little talent. When it came to female wrestlers, the criteria were even more absurd, with the hiring of bikini models who had no interest or experience in wrestling, resulting in figures like Kelly Kelly and Eva Marie, who contributed little to the quality of WWE's women's roster. To make matters worse, Laurinaitis insulted AJ Lee, one of the few competent wrestlers of the time, claiming that her appearance would prevent her from succeeding in the ring, asserting that male fans didn't want to see her wrestle. Laurinaitis' tenure in WWE was always surrounded by negative stories and heavy criticism from those who worked under his supervision. His departure from the company in 2022 was a relief for many, but new reports about him emerged on 2024, showing that his career as an executive in wrestling was just one chapter of a much more disturbing behavior. In January 2024, Janelle Grant, a former WWE employee, filed a federal lawsuit claiming that Vince McMahon coerced her into having a relationship to keep her job, and that both McMahon and Laurinaitis engaged in abusive behavior during the period from 2019 to 2022. Although more details are awaited in the case, it is already certain that John Laurinaitis' career in wrestling has ended, marked by a legacy of incompetence and serious abuse allegations. How about you? What do you think about John Laurinaitis? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the amazing videos we'll be releasing. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. See you in the next one.